The Chicago Bears are playing for the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. The Detroit Lions playing for pride. And I think there's going to be plenty of emotion in this Week 18 NFC North rematch. It's Crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Lions here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into our Crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Lions podcast. I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, alongside Matt Deary from Locked On Lions, getting you ready for the regular season finale. Really sneaks up on us here, but a lot to talk about for this game with storylines for both teams, big matchups, keys to victories. We'll see exactly just how much fight both these teams have in a Week 18 game that isn't going to change a lot for either team, but both teams sound like they want to go out there and play hard. Thank you for making Locked On Bears or Locked On Lions your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineups. Matt, when we start from a storylines perspective, I think about Detroit and saying, well, if they win, nothing really changes. They're out of the playoffs. If they lose, they improve their draft pick, but they're not going to intentionally try and lose the game. But how hard do you think they are going to try to win? Because the Bears say, hey, we want to win. We want to get the number 2 seed.
Well, first of all, Lauren, congratulations. I mean, all the years of you and I doing these shows and dealing with Peter Bukowski and Locked On Packers, Lauren Cox is a first place host. So congratulations to you. I know I'm a kind of a parts unknown right now on vacation with crazy Wi-Fi, but I want to get that out there. Happy holidays and certainly Happy New Year to the audience too. Bottom line is, Lauren, in a wild sequence here, the Lions at 8-8 have notoriously over the last few years in the preseason never played any of their starters, never tried any of them. I mean, this year was like 2 guys, Tyleik Williams and Tate Ratledge, that they wanted to see for like one series because they were rookies. So now in a meaningless game, similar to almost preseason, if you really look at it from the Lions' perspective, what is there to play for? Yet in that freezing cold there at Soldier Field, Penei Sewell is going to be out there. Taylor Decker, who knows, could be his last game. Does he retire? He wants to play coming off an illness. Jared Goff, who got his brains beat in last week by Brian Flores, and that Vikings defense is going to play. St. Brown wants to play despite a sore knee. So the Lions want to sweep the Bears, sweep Ben Johnson, their old buddy Benedict, and make chicken salad out of you-know-what here to get to 9-8. But again, really, the game doesn't mean anything, and it's a good debate to have in Detroit about whether the regulars should be out there.
But you mentioned Penei Sewell by name. I saw it as we were recording this on Wednesday that we haven't had the full injury report, but a reporter said he didn't participate in practice on Wednesday because of injury. I know, Decker sounds like he's going to play, and then is it Mahogany or one of the other offensive linemen's been in and out? And we mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. Like, do you think those guys are going to push through and play? Like, I would think, publicly you say we want to win, but any guy who's borderline injured, you sit him out and kind of say, oh, well, he's too hurt to play, even though if it were a playoff game, they would play. But in this kind of game, maybe you just sit him and say, nah, well, still, quote unquote, playing your starters. But you think they're going to push through?
I do. If you would have told me on Monday what they were going to do, I thought, all right, anybody that has any modicum of an injury, St. Brown, Sewell, who's been battling an ankle for weeks, Graham Glasgow, who's been in and out of the lineup and has missed the last 2 weeks, the starting center. Lauren, it sounds like they're all going to be out there. I think they all want this game. I don't know why. Maybe it, like you said, pride, and the Lions hashtag is kind of one pride. And maybe they feel like, hey, if we can beat the Bears and make them the 3 seed and have them have to play Stafford and the Rams instead of the banged up Packers, and have some momentum in the next season and finish 9-8 for the 4th straight year, a winning season. And as you know, with the Lions history, that's not been easily done. That's kind of where they're going with this. I mean, you mentioned before about the Bears. I mean, Lauren, of course the Bears are playing for this one for a lot of reasons. They want to, off a loss, they want to get back on track, and of course they want to be the 2 seed, right? They don't want to be the 3.
Yeah, they do, but I do wonder if there's a little bit of that, like, it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. Like, they're going to play their starters, they're going to play to win. Ben Johnson's been very clear about that. But I wonder if they got a guy who's 50-50. You would rather save them for the playoffs because, even if you lose this game and you're the 3 seed, you still got a home playoff game. Like, you're still going to need, Rome Odunze to be as healthy as possible. So, like, I don't think they're going to push him to play this week. They need Jalen Johnson to be as healthy as possible. And he's been he's been playing, but not 100%. So that's going to be the really key thing there is, like, do they push it for the borderline guys? I mean, I think the guys that are little nicks and bruises, they'll play through it. But I think while publicly saying we're going to do everything we can to win this game, I just wonder if there's a propensity to say, hey, let's be smart about the big picture here, because, from their perspective, we have more to play for than just beating the Lions, even though we do really want to beat the Lions. I think Ben Johnson's going to be particularly motivated to not get swept by his former team. I worry a little bit about, like, whether there will be a certain amount of ego where maybe he does a little bit too much in this game. And it's like, hey, man, like, can we put the personal thing aside a little bit and just say, hey, but, like, you got to play for the playoffs here. Don't go over the top and put all your stuff out on tape before the postseason.
Well, let's be honest, Lauren, the one thing he's done everything this year. He's done a magnificent job. I know Lion fans are ready to throw up. I mean, the good, better, best bit and the taking off the shirt. I mean, it's nauseating for Lions fans because he was ours. And now it's a heel turn. It's like a WWE thing. But the one thing he hasn't done this year is beaten his mentor. And he got embarrassed in week 2. And then you guys went on a great run after that. So there is a lot here, even though there isn't. It's kind of crazy. And look, I'll say it, and I'm sure you've talked about it the first 3 days this week. I want nothing to do with the Rams. If I'm the Bears, I want to play the Packers. And I know the rivalry and the hatred and LaFleur and Ben and the handshakes, but that's a banged up Green Bay team. I don't want to see the Rams. I think the Rams are as good as anybody in the NFC.
Yeah, no, actually, I just talked about that on yesterday's podcast. They are definitely scary team number one. I mean, the hope is that it's a home game, so you can bring them to the Chicago cold and get either the 49ers or the Rams maybe in a less than comfortable situation for them. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy path no matter where they go. I did want to, one other quick storyline thing for this game I wanted to circle back to with the cold weather. It's always been the narrative Jared Goff plays a lot worse outside in the cold. How real is that, and how much of a concern is that for you coming into this game after he just got beat up, not outside in Minnesota, but obviously just had a really bad game? And is it an extra concern to have to bounce back, cold weather Goff versus, at home in the dome feeling comfortable?
I never bought into cold weather Goff, and I don't. I know how poorly he played last year in Chicago. I know there's been games he's played well in the cold. He outplayed Aaron Rodgers in week 18 in a night game in 2022 that kind of jump-started this Lions run. He played great in that game. There have been plenty of games in bad weather, at least with the Lions, that he's played well. And yes, there's been games he's struggled, but there's been games he struggled in the dome, including this past weekend or last week on Christmas Day in Minnesota. That was an indoor game, and he was flat out awful. Now, Dan Campbell was on the radio earlier this week and was asked about Goff, and Campbell almost snapped and said, he's our guy. He's a stud. We love him, and he's going nowhere. They do love him. This would be interesting, though, because if he plays well this week with that, especially against a division champ on the road, would the cold weather Goff, bit police, would they immediately be shut up? I don't know. I just don't like how he played last week. He hasn't gotten a lot of help. St. Brown has had some drops. The tight end situation is terrible with Laporta and Wright out, and the O-line just hasn't been good. So I think some of it was Jared last Thursday in Minnesota, but it'd be interesting to see how he does this week.
And some of it might be a different play caller this year. I'm sure that couldn't be a factor at all.
Yeah.
But the Jared Goff matchup is going to be interesting because we just saw Brock Purdy and the 49ers put up 42 on this Bears defense without too much trouble getting there. So a real opportunity for a bounce back game for Jared Goff. We'll take a look at what kind of matchups could shape that on the defensive side of the ball for Chicago, and also how Caleb Williams is trying to keep his hot streak rolling against Detroit on Sunday. That's coming up next on our Crossover Thursday Locked On Bears, Locked On Lions podcast. Today's Crossover Thursday podcast is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. You can trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. And you can now build and execute your own trades from desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's robinhood.com/YOURMONEY. Your money, your move. All right, as we continue our Crossover Thursday Locked On Bears, Locked On Lions podcast, I want to get into some of these matchups here. And Matt, let's start with Goff, where we were. It seems like, when we think about the Vikings blitzing and getting after him and, sending them the rush after that offensive line, I know they've been banged up on the offensive line as well. Bears pass rush has been maybe the single biggest weakness on this team. Montez Sweat kind of comes and goes. The interior pass rush has been really non-existent. They've gotten some flashes from Austin Booker, their other edge rusher, but if Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell are playing, do you feel a lot more confident about them in this matchup, or what's your level of concern with the Lions protecting Jared Goff against a non-Brian Flores defense?
Well, I'll say this, Lauren. I really am concerned about the run game, first and foremost. Yes, protecting Goff is a problem, but the run game it's been buns for like 5 weeks. They have not gotten Jahmyr Gibbs going at all. They couldn't run the ball against Minnesota, couldn't run the ball against Pittsburgh. Gibbs was held to 2 yards on 7 carries. And that's been where this team has buttered its bread for the past 4 years. And over the last, I would say 5 games, maybe going back to Dallas, they just haven't been able to do it. And if you can't run the football and can't get that play action game going for Goff, I don't care if it's Ben Johnson, I don't care if it's Vince Lombardi or Don Coryell or, hey, let's throw in Mark Trestman. Sorry. It doesn't matter who it is. The bottom line is they're not getting it done. You've got to have a run game and you got to stop the run. And that's where it starts with me. I think you bring up great points about Sewell and Decker. Of course, if Penei Sewell can't go or halfway through the game taps out because the ankle's bad or Decker's not feeling well, they are weakened at right and left tackle, but they just have not been able to run the ball or stop the run for that matter. And that's been a massive problem. And obviously the Niners were able to do whatever they kind of wanted the other day. And I thought that was an outlier. Didn't you, Lauren? I think the Bears will bounce back this week. I just thought that was a shootout in one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 playoff teams going head to head, and I'm willing to chalk up some of that to Shanahan being a good coach. But man, like it just really felt like 49ers were good at accentuating the Bears' weaknesses, and like they just isolated tight ends and running backs on the Bears linebackers and attacked the middle of the field over and over again. They worked a couple double moves on Nashawn Wright and some of the more vulnerabilities on the outside at cornerback, and it just felt like Chicago didn't have an answer really all game defensively. They only got 1 turnover off of Brock Purdy, had another one called back by penalty, and like that was like the only times they could really stop them. They forced 2 punts all game, and every other drive was touchdowns. So I think there's a real concern that like this defense has to reprove itself a little bit against Lions. Not that they're going to solve all their problems and be a top 10 group all of a sudden, but like find some ways to get off the field. And I think they're looking at saying, yeah, the Lions can't run the ball, so let's load up and stop them there, and then force them to get one-dimensional and rely on those playmakers to be the kind of playmakers that the Lions need them to be and haven't necessarily been good enough the last few weeks. And yet the 49ers were doing it last week with Jake Tongas at tight end, no George Kittle out there. Yeah. They were doing it with Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings and Demarcus Robinson at wide receiver. Like these were not household names that were torching the Bears defense. It was just like good scheming, good play calling. And when you have no pass rush behind it, quarterback can just sit in there and tear you apart.
What is CJ Gardner-Johnson's status right now?
He has been good, and he's been good to go as far as I know. I mean, we'll see how the injury report goes, but he finished the last game and played, I think, every snap in that game. So, or every snap he was supposed to play in that game. So I'm expecting he should be out there, and he's been one of the most reliable cornerbacks, honestly, this season.
I'm making a prediction that we will see at some point in this game an unnecessary roughness, a 15-yard penalty on Gardner-Johnson. If you recall, when he left Detroit, things seemed okay, and then did an interview months later in Philly and was like, it was hell there. Very strange. He's an interesting guy. Maybe now he loves Detroit and he'll be hugging everybody pregame. I don't know, but keep an eye on that. I'm not saying he's going to cheap shot St. Brown or hit him in the head or something, but I think he's going to be maybe very motivated in this game and maybe too motivated. Just keep an eye on it.
Yes. That's been one of those like lingering fears in the back of Bears fans' mind all season. And we really haven't seen it be a problem yet. I mean, there have been a couple times when he's jawed with players, and I think he even drew a flag on someone else at one point, like the good side of the CJ Gardner-Johnson equation that you like. But we haven't seen the bad side yet. And it feels like it's coming at some point, right? Like at some point, and you worry it's going to be in the playoffs when the margin of error is the smallest, but the emotions are going to be the highest. So maybe it would be almost a good thing for him to like, can he get it out of his system in this game when it doesn't matter as much? And then, hopefully he'll learn his lesson for the playoffs, or at least temporarily to get them through. I mean, I don't know. Is there a player on the Lions that you feel like is the most instigating that if someone's going to get under his skin, is it Amon-Ra St. Brown, or is there somebody else that jumps out at you as like the guy who's going to push his buttons?
No, not necessarily. I mean, Jameson Williams has grown up a lot this year and has matured. If this would have been a year ago, I would have said, immature JMO against hot-headed Gardner-Johnson could get interesting. But I don't see where the Lion, Penei Sewell's a tough guy, and maybe they're going to jaw jack back and forth a little bit. That's a guy that can get triggered quickly. I just have a weird feeling about CJ and the things he said about the Lions in the past. That something could get if the Bears are up big late in the game, it could get nasty. I hope not. I want the Lions to get out of this game unscathed and healthy for next year. That's the biggest thing. And one other thing to watch too is the tight end situation for the Bears. I love what you guys have done with Loveland and how much better he's gotten in the second half. And Kmet's always good. If the Lions don't have Alex Anzalone, who's got a concussion, and he's a free agent at the end of this year, that could be a little issue covering tight ends if Anzalone is not out there.
Yeah, it's been a real revelation for this Bears offense down the stretch. Like to have he and Kmet, but especially Loveland has been the real joy. Like Kmet's just been the same thing he's been, but to have two of them, or really, I think Loveland more dynamic, has been something that has been just so reliable for Caleb Williams that when you throw the ball to Loveland, he's going to catch it even if it's a tough situation. Like he has been all reliable. And then you add on, especially last week, Luther Burden being the kind of explosive, dynamic breakout player who's just. If he catches a 3-yard out, he can get you 7 more yards after the catch in a key situation, or he can, run by you deep downfield. He's just doing a little bit of everything right now that Bears fans are really, really excited about them. And I look at Detroit and feel like the last handful of games here, the defense has not been what it's been. I know there's been some questions about Kelvin Shepard's job security as well. Is there anything you can pin down to saying like, here's what's going wrong for that group so specifically? I know the Vikings game, like turnovers kind of skewed the final point total there for Minnesota. But, the Steelers and the Rams and the Cowboys and even the Packers before that weren't having as much trouble putting up points as I would expect.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Bears fans and Locked On Bears viewers and listeners are going to look out there and not see Brian Branch and not see Kirby Joseph. Those are two massive losses for this defense. Two of the top 6 safeties coming into the season from PFF, both on the Lions and both out for the year. Joseph's knee is a major concern this offseason. And Branch has been out too after surgeries, and he'll have to be back next year. So not having Brian Branch just really hurts. He's just a guy that comes up in the run support and does well. He's good against the pass. He can slide in and play some corner if they need him to. If anybody's hurt, and you get Terrion Arnold out, DJ Reed's been a major disappointment. But I thought the defense for the most part last week didn't play poorly. Yes, it was Max Brosmer, but they held Justin Jefferson to four catches, 30 yards, but they're on the field the whole game. But Kelvin Shepard, I think, is safe, but they'll have a new offensive coordinator next year.
That was part of the problem for the Bears against the 49ers, the time of possession thing, right? You're just on the field for so long and guys get gassed. And I'm sure, for Detroit, that's a lack of running game, lack of time of possession, then lack of plays and ball control. And I think Chicago is going to be looking to get back to more of that too. So I wonder if we're not in for a both teams trying to lean on the running game here, trying to slow down the clock, and maybe that leads to a lower scoring matchup, or if it's both teams are trying to show up the other side and say, all right, let's come out firing, let's get points on the board. So we'll take a look at how this game could go and what the keys to victory will be for both sides as we continue our Crossover Thursday Locked On Lions, Locked On Bears podcast. Our crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine this year or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge. But with PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the sports action never slows down, and PrizePicks lets you stay in control. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy sports app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player stat projections. So there's no drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less on a player stat, and boom, you're playing your way. So you could pick more or less on Jared Goff's passing yards or DeAndre Swift's rushing yards or Luther Burden's receiving yards. You can even cross over into other sports, basketball, hockey, soccer, you name it, whatever's on this time of year. It's all quick and simple on PrizePicks. Their app is super easy to navigate, and you can make your lineup in literally just 60 seconds. So download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, as we wrap up our crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Lions podcast, I want to thank you for making Locked On Bears or Locked On Lions your first listen today, and hopefully every single day to start the 2026. There's a New Year's resolution for you. Tune in to Locked On Bears or Locked On Lions 5 days a week, every single week. Make us a part of your daily listening habit because we're breaking down these games for you. Even in Week 18, we haven't been gone all season long. Looking at keys to victory for both of these teams. Obviously, Bears, I think, are 3-point favorites right now on FanDuel. Bears have a little bit more to play for here, we've talked about. But when you look at the Lions trying to bounce back and get one more win and sweep Ben Johnson, what does that look like for them? What does a win for the Lions look like to undo this losing streak to end the year?
I'm going to say, Lauren, it's time to unlock David Montgomery again. I mean, you're playing Week 18, 425, so you're going to get to a 325 Central. So I'd say second half is going to be dark. It's going to be almost like a night game at that point with the sun going down. Just pound the rock with Montgomery. And I get it. Jahmyr Gibbs is your guy, and he's tremendous in the open field. But a game like this, if they could somehow just unlock him again, where he can carry some bodies, take a 3-yard gain and turn it into a 6-yard gain, get the offensive line moving again, where they're moving bodies and pushing the pile back. It just hasn't been there. And Montgomery has kind of voiced his displeasure on Instagram. There's been some deleted posts. There's been some cryptic posts. What's his future looking like? He's going back to Chicago. He used to play for the Bears. He'd love to beat the Bears again at Soldier Field and have a day playing against his old team. No matter if there's bitterness there or not, everybody always wants to go back and show up their old team. So I'd like to see that first and foremost. I think that would be a big key. What about on your side? Because I know DeAndre Swift would love to beat the Lions again and run all over them. He kind of did that in the first game a little bit. Despite the loss, there were some moments he had some open lanes.
Yeah, I mean, generally, the Bears have been running the ball really well, even, the last handful of games. It's been more a question of, how often they're actually handing it off. That Ben Johnson's been a little bit pass happy in some of these moments. And sometimes he's had to be, like against the 49ers when the other team's scoring on every drive and you feel like, all right, we got to keep this rolling. Or when they're trailing to Green Bay in both of those games in the first half, and it's like, all right, we're behind on the scoreboard, so we can't take too long to just hand it off and run the ball. Like, it hasn't been a yards per carry issue. It's been a total number of carries question. And so I think on one hand, yeah, like if I'm drawing up my perfect Bears victory, right, it's you have Caleb Williams do as little as possible, right? Like, don't put him in harm's way at all. Like, run the ball 40 times in this game for 5 yards a carry and, win 17-13. Something like that I think would be an ideal kind of game of just slow it down, take it easy. It doesn't have to be this big show. And yet I feel like Ben Johnson's going to want to pull out a couple of things, just especially because I think the way the first game ended, but he wasn't like publicly like upset about the Lions running up at the end, but he said, he kind of like, hey, that's how they are. I respect it. Like, that's how it's going to be. So I feel like he's going to feel some amount of, well, I might pull out a trick play here and there, and I might take a few deep shots downfield here or there. And I don't think he wants to do the slow, boring, slugfest kind of beat you long and slow, but more like, no, I really want to smack you in the mouth with something special. And that's what I'm anticipating there. But I think they're also going to need a turnover or two from the Lions. Doesn't have to be a Goff interception necessarily, but like when the Bears get one or fewer turnovers, it's really hard for them to get off the field. Like, they need you to help their defense just a little bit. And they've been really good attacking the ball in the air and being advantageous when the opportunities are there, they take advantage, but you do got to give them an inch so that they can take the mile. And if the Lions just take really good care of the football and don't give them that inch, I think it's going to be a lot easier going for the Lions offense. And then all of a sudden the Bears are trying to have to keep up in the scoring again.
We're 24 minutes into this thing and haven't really brought up Caleb Williams. And I've never been a huge believer. I think he's playing so well right now. And I've been impressed. And I think if the Lions want to have a chance to win this game, it sounds like they're playing to win and playing their guys. They got to get off the field on third down. If there's get a couple of stops, it's 3rd and 9. You're forcing Caleb into a long situation on a third down. Get off the field. I mean, the Lion fans know this over the last month or so, just have not been able to get off the field on third down and even on some 4th down situations. And so some stops, force a punt or two. And look, I know how well Caleb's playing right now, especially with his legs and making some unbelievable throws on the run. I'm not ready to crown him MVP like Dave Kaplan, my buddy in Chicago, is, but man, he's playing so well, and you got to stop some of that stuff. And he's going to make his plays, and you guys got plenty of weapons. But getting off the field for that defense is going to be huge. It'll get demoralizing first half if the Bears are 4 for 4 of their first 5 on third down. It'll be a long day.
And it's funny because it's kind of been like, it's almost been the inverse of that for Chicago in the sense that like the Bears have not done a very good job on 1st and 2nd down, but they've been so good on 3rd downs, right? It's sort of this weird inverse of like, the Lions need to be able to get off the field, and the Bears like they keep putting themselves in these trickier situations where somehow they stay on the field, but it's 3rd and 13, and he finds a way to convert it and get it done. So like, I think in a weird way, like the Bears need to do better on 1st and 2nd down. The Lions need to do better on 3rd down, and kind of they're kind of like inverse puzzle pieces here that fit in kind of. I don't know if that's really advantageous for either side, but kind of trying to figure out how they can kind of improve in this key factor in both directions here. But no, Caleb has been really dialed in, especially deep downfield. That's been one of the big differences this year. Is like he took plenty of deep shots last year, but it was always a little too far in front, a little too underthrown. Just couldn't quite dial it in and kind of pinpoint where that ball needs to be. But he's really feeling that right now, doing a better job of not taking sacks and throwing the ball away a lot, and just avoiding some of those negative plays as well. But it's certainly not, far from perfect. It still has a lot of development to go. And he'll miss 4 or 5 throws a game that you're like, how do you, like, that's an easy one. Like, you got to be able to hit some of those. But he's been able to do enough of the really positive, really difficult downfield throws that more than make up for an easy check down that we one-hopped to the running back when it's like, that doesn't cost you the game, but you're still like, how can you miss that one and make the miracle throw down the sideline? I mean, it's part of the roller coaster ride that we're really enjoying.
All right, so you said earlier 17-13 possibly Bears.
That's the ideal, I would say, but like I don't think the Bears defense can hold the Lions to 13. Like that would just be like the ideal. You control the clock well enough. But if I was trying to put numbers on it, I think this game will be close. I do think the Bears will win. I think even the Lions are trying hard, like subconsciously they know they're not fighting for anything. And I just think like there's a certain mentality thing that you're not even thinking about, but just in the back of your mind, why am I putting my body on the line for what? Revenge against Ben Johnson? Like how, if there's just that subtle sort of drawback there. So I would go like, 23-20 Bears is the kind of thing I'm thinking, or 24-21, something in that kind of range where the Lions offense, you'll feel a lot better about Goff and the Lions getting a little bit of a bounce back offensive performance. They'll run the ball better, I think, than they have the last few weeks, but it won't be quite enough to win the game, but you'll feel like, all right, the sky is not falling at the end of week 18.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of see a 24-19 win for the Gary Bears, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. So shout out to Kevin Warren, the genius.
Hey, leverage is leverage, man. The Chiefs just went across state lines, so Gary is right next to Chicago. All the flights still flying in Chicago. You can even be in the closest suburb across state lines is called East Chicago, Indiana. So they could be the East Chicago. They could still be the Chicago Bears in East Chicago, Indiana, and get all the government tax dollars they want from the state of Indiana instead of the state of Illinois.
The Bears have had such an amazing year. I mean, on the field, everything's rolling for them. And I just thought that maneuver by Warren a couple weeks ago was just a classic. But
yeah,
whatever.
Hey, we'll cross that stadium bridge when we get to it. But in the meantime, Soldier Field, Sunday afternoon, 3:25 Central Time. Ben Johnson revenge game part 2. It's been fun. We're looking forward to seeing how this game goes for both sides. We'll be back to break it down for you on our Monday Locked On Lions and Locked On Bears podcasts. Plus, we still have Friday shows this week coming as well to kick off your 2026 the right way. So thank you for tuning in and making Locked On Lions or Locked On Bears your first listen again today. Make it the same thing again tomorrow and every day next week and throughout the rest of this 2026 season. For Matt Deary from Locked On Lions, I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears. We will talk to you again tomorrow.